You might think you've seen it all when it comes to vegetables, but America's gardens used to be filled with some truly strange-looking crops. Bright colors, wild shapes, and names you've probably never heard before. These weren't just gimmicks. They were real heirlooms passed down through generations and once proudly grown across the country. Even though some still exist today, most people have forgotten they ever existed. So, in this video, we're bringing them back. Here are 15 bizarre, beautiful, and long-lost crops that once thrived in American gardens. Let's start with chufa. In parts of the South, chufa was once as common as corn. Known as earth almonds, these crunchy little tubers weren't nuts at all. They grew underground, clinging tightly to their roots, and kids used to dig them up for an after-school snack. Not to be confused with peanuts, chufa tubers are smaller, rounder, and have a naturally sweet flavor that doesn't need roasting. Older generations remember soaking them in water to soften the skins before eating, or tossing a handful into a lunch pail like trail mix. They were also planted to attract wild turkeys, which still love them today. But in the garden, they served as an easy, drought-tolerant snack crop that required very little care. Now let's talk about rat-tailed radish. Unlike traditional radishes, this variety doesn't grow roots worth eating. Instead, it produces long, curly seed pods that taste like spicy green beans. Not to be confused with the classic red radish, this one stays above ground. Backyard gardeners once grew them for pickling and snacking straight off the plant. The pods added crunch and heat to relishes and pickles that lined pantry shelves across America. It grows fast, thrives in warm weather, and keeps producing long after traditional radishes have bolted. It's perfect for small spaces and a fun way to introduce kids to gardening. And now orange glow watermelon. If you were lucky enough to see one of these at a summer picnic, you'd never forget it. The orange glow watermelon looked like something out of a cartoon. Pale green stripes on the outside, and when you cut it open, a shock of brilliant orange flesh. It wasn't just pretty. It was sweet, juicy, and packed with flavor. Some gardeners swore it was the best-tasting watermelon they'd ever grown. But there was a catch. It didn't travel well. The flesh was too soft for shipping long distances, so supermarkets passed it by. Over time, it faded from the spotlight, but in backyard gardens, it still shines. If you want a showstopper for your next cookout, plant orange glow and prepare to be asked for seeds. Corn salad, also known as mache or lamb's lettuce, was once a beloved winter green in American gardens. It wasn't a salad made from corn, of course. Its name came from the fact that it often grew wild in cornfields, especially in cooler climates. Corn salad forms low rosettes of soft spoon-shaped leaves that are tender, nutty, and mild in flavor. Gardeners in cooler parts of the country prized it for being one of the few greens that would grow when everything else gave up. It could handle light frost, and families often picked it right through early winter. In small-town America, it was mixed with hard-boiled eggs, dressed with vinegar or tossed with bacon grease for a quick supper. You could sow it thickly and let it reseed itself year after year, often popping up on its own, just waiting to be harvested. Another strange crop is clatonia, or miner's lettuce, which once grew wild across much of the American West. During lean times, especially in tight-knit rural communities, families gathered it by the basket. Its name comes from gold miners who depended on it for fresh greens, particularly to prevent scurvy. But long after the gold rush, it remained a spring staple for those who knew its worth. It thrives in shaded, damp spots and produces tender, slightly citrusy leaves. Similar to corn salad, people would mix it with boiled eggs, vinegar, and a touch of sugar for fresh spring salads long before kale was trendy. Next, we have scores. This unusual root vegetable once thrived in American gardens from the Midwest to the Great Plains. With its long, dark exterior resembling a black carrot and creamy white interior, scorzonera offered a subtle, oyster-like flavor that stood out among more common crops. Often mistaken for its cousin salsify, scorzonera boasts a smoother texture and richer taste. It became a kitchen staple for families with Eastern European or German roots who simmered it with butter, mashed it like potatoes, or added it to soups as a hearty thickener. Though cleaning the roots took effort, and the name didn't do it any favors, scorona thrived in American soil and could easily overwinter in the ground. Now, here's a melon that fooled a lot of people. The citron melon looks like a small green-striped watermelon, but cut it open, and the truth comes out. The pale, firm flesh is barely sweet, almost like squash, but that's exactly what made it useful. In the past, especially in the American South, this melon was grown not for fresh eating, but for preserving. People cubed it, boiled it down with sugar and lemon, and turned it into spiced jellies or candied rind. It was a staple on holiday tables long before store-bought treats took over. As home preserving faded out of fashion, so did the citron melon. But for anyone who enjoys canning or wants a piece of edible history, this melon is a conversation starter and a reminder of how creative old-time gardeners really were. Let's continue with mashua. It grows like a morning glory and produces tubers that look like twisted, colorful fingers. It made its way into American gardens thanks to seed savers and adventurous growers who wanted to try something bold. Not to be confused with potatoes, mishawa is more pungent and peppery. Some describe the flavor as a mix between radish and turnip, with a hint of wasabi. Many American gardeners admired its unique look and resilience, but its bold flavor and unfamiliar uses kept it more of a hidden gem. Still, it's remarkably resistant to pests, thrives in cool weather, and grows well, even in poor soil. Ask an older gardener about peak lane and you might get a smile. This fleshy little green used to be tossed into summer salads across the country. It's often mistaken for a weed. That's a shame. Purslane is rich in omega-3, has a bright lemony crunch, and requires almost no care. Families in the South and Midwest would pick it straight from between rows of tomatoes and cucumbers. Some added it to cornbread batter, while others simply salted it and ate it raw. Today, most people yank it out of their gardens without realizing they're tossing one of the most nutritious greens on earth. If you want a healthy, fast-growing, and nearly indestructible green, give purslane a second chance. Next is New Zealand spinach. But don't let the name fool you. This is not your typical leafy green. While regular spinach wilts in the heat, this one loves it. It thrives in full sun and dry soil, making it perfect for hot summers when other greens give up. The leaves are thick, triangle-shaped, and grow close to the ground like a living mat. It spreads out wide and handles drought better than most garden vegetables. Early gardeners relied on it during scorching months when growing anything leafy was tough. Families cooked it down with onions, added it to stews, or froze it for later use. It has a mild, salty taste and holds its shape well when cooked. When lettuce and regular greens bolt and fade, this tough plant just keeps going. In some American gardens, especially in the Southwest, wantel was once a familiar sight. It looks like a cross between broccoli and kale, but it's actually a close cousin of quinoa. Gardeners would gather the flowering tops, coat them in batter, and fry them until crispy, earning it the nickname Mexican broccoli. Crispy, nutty, and rich in iron. It was both hearty and satisfying. In towns near the border, you might have seen it drying in bunches or sizzling on stovetops. It never quite went mainstream, likely due to its bitter edge and unusual appearance, but it thrives in heat, tolerates drought, and offers a depth of flavor that most modern greens just can't match. Next is Yukon. At first glance, it might look like just another tall leafy plant, but underground it hides a sweet and juicy surprise. The roots of Yukon are crisp and refreshing, with a flavor that falls somewhere between apple and watermelon. Back in the day, some folks would slice and dry them into chewy snacks, while others pressed them into juice that was surprisingly sweet, yet low in calories. Many just pulled one from the ground, brushed it off, and ate it raw right there in the garden. The long growing season kept it mostly in the warmer states or greenhouses, but for those who grew it, Yukon was a sweet reward worth the wait. Next up is roselle, a beautiful plant with a long history in home gardens. Not to be confused with ornamental hibiscus, this one produces bright red parts just below the flower that are not only edible, but packed with flavor. Families would pick them and steep them into tart, refreshing drinks. Some called it Jamaica, and many remembered jars of homemade hibiscus tea, summer punch or syrup made from its petals. But it wasn't just for drinks. The young leaves were used too, chopped into soups and stews to add a tangy twist. Roselle also stood out in the garden with its bold color and tall, graceful shape. Let's continue with jelly melon, something that looks like it came from another planet. You might also hear it called kiwano or horned melon. This strange fruit crept into American gardens sometime in the 20th century. Bright orange skin covered in tiny spiky horns made it stand out instantly. But the real surprise is inside. Vivid green jelly with a tangy, refreshing bite. Back then, kids couldn't get enough of how weird it looked. But the taste and slimy texture, that was a bit too much for most families. It never became a grocery store favorite. But it has its strengths. It handles heat and drought like a champ, and it stores for weeks without a problem. So if you're into bold tropical flavors, or just want to grow something your neighbors will definitely ask about, the jelly melon is still worth a spot in your garden. Let's wrap up with something that defies expectations. The white wonder cucumber. It's exactly what the name says. Pale ivory rind, light-colored flesh, and a light crisp taste that stays mellow even in summer heat. This variety used to be common in American gardens, especially among folks who like their cucumbers smooth and not bitter. Sliced in a salad or stacked in a pickle jar, the snowy white color made it pop. But as commercial catalog is shifted toward uniform green varieties, the white wonder quietly slipped away. Today it's a rare find but still worth growing, especially if you love crunchy, cool cucumbers with a touch of nostalgia.